Hey guys, it's Danny. I hope you're all having a great weekend. It is time to answer some of your questions. I have a folder with so many questions. I'd better get to work. So let us start. So for the first question, Orchid Love is asking, what are the bumps that they have on their phalaenopsis which don't look like an infection or bugs and they won't come off at all? Well, it's actually nothing to worry about. I've looked through my orchids, I don't seem to have any. Just to show you, but I'll look through my footage, I've had them before. They're just something we call edema. It's a blistering of the orchid leaf. They can appear on the upper side and on the underside as well. Don't try to pop them or to remove them because you will not be able to do so. They can sometimes appear on flowers, on petals as well, but they look a little bit different. The bumps can be green, they can look exactly like a blister, and they can also be dark. I'll link you down below to an article on edema so you can learn more about it, but as far as I understand, it happens due to watering with cold water or watering in a cold environment. In any case, it is not an infection, nothing to worry about. If the orchid came with that damage, that's okay, you don't really have to do anything. But if the orchid developed it in your care, might want to consider the temperature of the water or the temperature in your environment. Phalaenopsis are usually pretty warm growing orchids. Mew Mew is asking about orchid medium. They live above the Arctic Circle and everybody recommends bark. But in their home, the dry air makes it so that the medium dries out fast. So what medium to use? So as you're saying, in your house, it can be pretty dry, I suspect pretty warm. Definitely bark is not the easiest medium for you to work with. The organic, let's say, alternative to that would be a mixture between bark and sphagnum moss. I used this mixture in my previous environment. The problem with organic medium, as you know, is that you will have to change it periodically as it breaks down. You need to change it every 1 to 3 years depending on the products you're using, but an alternative to organic medium is inorganic. And the mixture that I'm using is clay, it's leca. And I'm using it because I too have issues with evaporation, but in my case it's not humidity, it's just the extreme high temperature for prolonged periods of time, which leads to the same problem that you have. So I chose semi-hydroponics because it has a reservoir of water which is wicked up that the orchid can definitely use. Some is lost in the air through evaporation, obviously, but that's okay. Imagine I have this much water whenever I water my orchid in the reservoir. So that's what I have to do to keep my orchids hydrated in this environment, but it is again a solution. So either the organic with the combination of medium, either the setup, because it's not the medium that makes the difference here, it's the setup and how it works with this particular medium, which absorbs water. So I think these are two very good alternatives for you that you should definitely consider. Try them out, test them out, see which one you like the best. Obviously with inorganic, you will not have to repot periodically because this doesn't decompose, but it's really different. It definitely changes the rules of orchid care. So I suggest you test them out first, see which one works better with you, which one you like better. But yeah, there you go. You have two alternatives at least. T-Tas is asking me if I could grow an orchid and test it out in sphagnum moss. And well, I've already done that. Quite a few years ago, I was growing my orchids in organic medium, including moss. It's a medium I actually like. Not all that much because it decomposes way too fast, but I will link you down below to a video on my Neophanetia fulcata. I used to grow it pretty similar to a kokedama setup, only sphagnum moss, and I'll link you to this particular video because I explain how I watered it so that the orchid was not overly saturated with water, it was still ventilated and so on. I think it's a video which you can apply to multiple types of orchids, not only Neophanetias, not only kokedamas. Sphagnum moss can be a little weird to work with, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty wonderful as long as you look at it as a temporary medium, not as a permanent one, sadly. This is why I switched to inorganic. I like sphagnum moss better than bark, and everything else is just very temporary. Teddy is asking, what are the first few things that a person should do when they receive orchids in the mail? Well, everybody has their own routine. I'll just talk a little bit about mine. First of all, I unbox them somewhere further away from my other orchids. I do unbox them in my greenhouse, so I cannot move too far away. But if you grow your orchids in a home, you can unbox them in the kitchen and see how they look like. or you can unbox them outside or out of the greenhouse. That would be ideal because you never know what critters you'll find, and I did have quite a scary experience at some point. There were a few insects crawling around my ceiling from some new orchids, so there we go. When I want to film, I sadly have to unbox in the greenhouse because it's quiet and I have the lighting situation and so on. I sometimes do unbox outside of the greenhouse. So that's the first thing to do. Be sure you're not spreading the initial insects you might find in the box. Sometimes I found ants as well. The second thing is to just assess your orchids a little bit, the medium, see if everything needs instant repotting due to fallen medium or very bad medium, bad looking, bad smelling, infested and so on. And I would act right away. If you don't have time to repot, at least throw away the medium, unpot the orchid, keep it bare root for a day or for a few hours, it doesn't matter. They're epiphytes, they do not care if you put them on the table and you leave and you come back the next day. That's the good thing with orchids. Nothing bad will happen if you do that. But, you know, tomorrow you should kind of tend for them. Also make sure to inspect them a little bit, see if they have pests and so on, and then come back and tend for them. I don't really know what else to say. The most important thing is to quarantine them kind of for a little while, or at least don't put them close to the other orchids. I know I sometimes don't do this, but it's solely because I film, because I keep my orchids in one place. I'm trying to put them outside as well, but it's dangerous. There are other things happening outside as well, so I'm a little nervous. But there you go, that's pretty much all you need to do. You can wait a day or two until you tend for them. Most of the times nothing will happen. Just figure out if everything is okay, what you need to do, if you need to repot, what you should repot into, and so on and so forth. Stefan says that they have an orchid which needs a repot and the roots on top are really dark. Any ideas about what might be going on and should you be worried? Well, yes, I know what's going on. I have a suspicion at least. I think the top roots are burned, and I know a thing or two about that because I did burn some roots, especially this summer with the catasetums. So the thing that actually gets damaged is the velamen, not the root itself. So you need first to assess the roots. Press gently on them, see if they're stiff. If they're stiff, they should be pretty much okay. A little burn doesn't kill a root off. The top of the medium is usually where most of the salts tend to deposit, so it's where roots are prone to get more burned. The top of the medium dries up faster and the roots simply don't have time to absorb all of that nutrient. It deposits and then they might get some burns. That's why we flush orchids. So just repot your orchid, assess the roots. If they're alive, let them be. They should be pretty okay. If they're mushy, obviously cut them and just make sure that from now on your orchid receives adequate flushing, adequate watering or fertilizing perhaps. If you have your ways of avoiding salt buildup, that's perfectly fine. Just know that the top of the medium usually is prone to salt accumulations and sometimes roots can get slightly burned, but it's only the velamen that is damaged, not necessarily the root. In extreme cases, of course, the roots can die, and I had an extreme case. I did it myself. Not proud of it, but there we go. If it's just a little stain, don't worry about it. The root is pretty much okay. All right, I feel that I will butcher your name. I'm sorry in advance. Kirail is asking me if they can only use charcoal as medium since it's getting harder to find any other mediums. And the answer is yes, you can definitely use charcoal. You need to keep in mind its properties though. People don't usually use charcoal as a standalone medium because it doesn't retain water. And because most orchid growers grow them in the house, you know, not everybody has a proper greenhouse and showers their orchids on a daily basis, we tend to prefer medium that holds water just so we don't have to water every day. The problem with charcoal is that it doesn't really retain much water, so there is a chance you'll need to water it more often. However, it is a very popular medium in Philippines, Malaysia. Sorry if I'm wrong, but in that area of the world because it is very humid there. Charcoal does indeed have some nice properties that don't favor molds and bacterial infections and so on. You know that charcoal can be used to absorb bad odors as well. So because of the extreme humidity in those areas, charcoal is very used there. So depends where you're from, depends on the environment, your availability to water. If you enjoy and have time to water, of course you can grow your orchids in charcoal, you can grow them mounted, however you like, as long as the medium is not toxic and doesn't alter water parameters too much and so on. Charcoal is not toxic, does not alter parameters as far as I know. It is widely used It's just hard to maintain in a house, indeed, so just think about all of those things. And if you discover that you have the great environment and lifestyle for charcoal, go for it, use it. It's a great medium and doesn't degrade all that fast as far as I know. Alrighty guys, I think that's enough for today. We'll continue this next time. Thank you so much for joining. Hope you've enjoyed it and you learned something new, and you know the drill. If you did enjoy it, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye! By the way, I just realized something. I saw Astrid's video. So when I showed off this orchid to people, I wanted to show off the whole ejecting the pollen situation. And guess what? I could not trigger the pollen. So, no, this orchid does not eject pollen. I tried so much, it did not. And this is just the cap, it's not the pollen itself. Oh my goodness, so the cap falls, yeah, but the pollen is not ejected. So the Millennium Magic might not be one of those that ejects pollen. And Astrid in her latest video said the Fred Clark Kiaras don't eject pollen either. I don't know, I can tell you mine didn't. So yeah, you don't have to be afraid to smell it or handle it too much. I think you can smell it and handle it. It will not eject pollen, it will not lose flowers prematurely. It's good.